Hello, this is David Griffiths and welcome to Scotland This Week. Have we got a program for you? Such a special program, for it is bringing the agenda back to the reality. I'm not particularly interested in the alleged corruptions in the SNP, or as I prefer to call them, the SGP, the Scottish Globalist Party, for they have nothing to do with nationalism and everything to do with a global order wanting to bring in a LGBTQ agenda. Now, before we start, let me say a couple of things. There was a comment on Rumble in relation to what a writer had declared that I'd missed the point over the resignation of Nicola Sturgeon. I do not believe I had. He was, and I can understand it, referring to the police inquiry which has now taken place. But I take something far more important than that inquiry. For that inquiry is, as I understand it, about missing monies, about missing members. 120,000 there was supposed to be, and now there's only 70,000. There's monies missing. They are the allegations. I treat the death of a child in the womb far more important than money, don't you? And it is in that understanding I'm bringing the real situation to the fore in our Scotland This Week program. On the program later, you'll be able to see Dan Wooton give his appraisal in relation to the SNP government. Very interesting appraisal, because I believe he clearly shows its incompetence, and particularly in the career of its First Minister. I believe this is so serious, even more serious than the police inquiry into the affairs of the SNP, or the SGP as I'm now beginning to call them. For I believe there is corruption right at the heart of the Scottish government. And I'm not referring to a particular case that is for a jury to decide. I'm referring in general to the ferry scandals we'll be dealing with in Scotland this week. But our first area is the LGBTQ agenda, a globalist agenda, which is really causing African countries to make a stand against that. And this is costing them to receive aid from many Western countries. As I understand this, they have to bow down to the pro-abortion LGBTQ agenda. Now, let me draw a distinction right away between the LGBTQ agenda and homosexuals in general. I believe there's many homosexuals against the LGBTQ agenda, as there are many African people against the Black Lives Matter agenda. For we're talking of political agendas that come against constitutions of countries, as they've come against our own constitution, our written constitution around the monarch in the United Kingdom. It is that I'm talking about. This is not an individual attack against any individual homosexual. It is to do with the promotion of an agenda which is, in simple terms, child abuse. And we've seen that coming out with the SGP, formerly SNP agenda. I believe they are seriously abusing our children, affecting the education of our children. From once the proud Scottish education system has been brought down, in my view, to the gutter because of the LGBTQ agenda. Also, the threat on women is massive. This government in Scotland put a convicted rapist, male raping women into a women's prison. It is for that reason, and that reason alone, that the SNP government, now I'm calling SGP, Scottish Globalist Party government, is on the way out. I make no apologies for this. And to the Rumble platform writer, God bless you, my friend. I understand where you're coming from. This is no attack against you. I fully appreciate you believe I'd missed this in a previous program. I didn't miss it. The life of a child is far more important than money. The safety of women is far more important than money. It's about money that the police inquiry in relation to the SNP is going on. Money is nothing when it comes to life. And I wish our legal system would lock up the SNP members who are pro-abortion and pro-LGBTQ agenda, for it is this, I believe, to be the real crime, rather than misappropriation of funds, which I understand is the allegation. Africa is making its stand. Africa should provide the lead to save the world from this degeneration and decadence, which is really very dangerous humanity, said Uganda President Yoweri Museveni. He is 100% right. I treat this issue over the LGBTQ agenda as a killer and destroyer. And I believe it's killing and destroying homosexuals too, as well as heterosexuals. And that is why so many homosexual people oppose this agenda. We're talking the political agenda. From Entebbe, Uganda, we have a report via LifeSite News, which reads as follows. Uganda's president recently reiterated his country's commitment to rejecting the promotion of homosexuality and encourage other African nations to do exactly the same. It is this we are coming against in the Scottish Heritage Party. President Yoweri Museveni, who has been repeatedly attacked by Western leaders for his firm denial of the LGBT agenda, spoke over the weekend at the first Interparliamentary Conference on Family Values and Sovereignty. How we need one of these in Scotland. The event's theme was protecting African culture and family values, and was attended by leaders from more than 22 African countries and the UK. During his remarks in Entebbe, Museveni urged those gathered to reject clauses in the updated Cotonou Agreement with the EU that unnecessarily promote abortion and gender ideology, it being that, in my view, which is pulling down the SNP government, and called on experts to explain the root causes of gender confusion, sharing how enabling the confusion to continue-only clauses harm to individuals and communities. Africa, this is what the president said, Africa should provide the lead to save the world from this degeneration and decadence, which is very dangerous humanity. In the UK, I believe if only those of all faiths, Islam, Christianity, whatever background, those who hold traditional family values, in the strapline of the Heritage Party UK, family, nation. We need to understand the importance of family in a nation. And this agenda is profoundly attacking that whole ethos. If people, continued the president, of the opposite sex stop appreciating one another, then how will the human race be propagated? And this, of course, is the global depopulation agenda at large, with abortion and the LGBTQ agenda. Yes, we are poor, he said, but warn fellow excellencies not to sign the Cotonou Agreement. By signing, we're putting the future of our children in great risk, he said. We're excited for what's happening in Uganda. Museveni shared that Uganda will not implement so-called comprehensive sexuality education, called CSE policies, citing the fact that children need to grow as children. This is exactly the policy we are putting to the Scottish people. And if only those of all faiths, backgrounds, no faith at all, people of common decency would come and join the Scottish Heritage Party, we can come together and say we are a family party declaring the importance of family. One expert the president called on to share more knowledge about the issues of teaching CSE was Dr. Wahome Ngari, a senior consultant and chairman of the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association. The part of the brain, this is the quote from the doctor, that makes them, referring to children, reason and make good decisions does not mature until 20 years of age, he explained to the leaders gathered. Therefore, if you come out to teach a child to make good sexual decisions, it is not possible. That is why we have the age of 18 as a cutoff for what children can be allowed to do without parental guidance. Therefore, the child doesn't have to be exposed to sexual matters until the inclination starts naturally. Ngari emphasized the unnatural tendencies of homosexuality, citing that such relationships are unable to produce children, which maintains a functioning society. He said the broken families create homosexuals. They are children who are broken. They are not genetic or hormonal, but psychological, he said. Same-sex unions and same-sexual acts are anti-life, anti-family, anti-humanity, Ngari added. It should be banned in total. That is the position of the government of Uganda. I'll come to our position in a moment. It is the position of the government of Russia. And I have a speech here from President Putin, who is declaring that in Western countries there is a neglecting of sacred texts. He said, family is the union of a man and a woman, but these sacred texts are now being questioned. Reportedly, the Anglican Church is planning to explore the idea of a gender-neutral God. This is what's happening in the Church of England, and because of this, I believe they are unfit to bring about the coronation next year, which I believe God has already rejected. Indeed, the British Church newspaper, see, I've got a balance here. I've just given you a report from LifeSite News, comes from a Roman Catholic background. The British Church newspaper comes from a Reformed Protestant background. But on these issues, they are saying exactly the same. And so we say to Roman Catholics and Protestants of the Reformed background, of myself being a minister of the latter, there are things we can come together on. And these things are family values. And we need to come together. There are many Muslims. I had a friend when I was on council in North Wales, who was a ethical Muslim, believing in traditional family values. We can come together in the Heritage Party and make a stand and really put down the SNP, not on the allegations of financial wrong, which are allegations at this stage, but what is absolute fact is the abuse of children coming through the SNP. It is this we need to make a stand against. And we read in the British Church newspaper that Labour MP Ben Bradshaw, now this doesn't relate directly to Scotland, but in effect relates directly into the global agenda which is affecting Scotland. Labour MP Ben Bradshaw has sponsored a bill to force the Church of England to hold same-sex marriages. Well, let me refer you to the Bible. In Ephesians 5, it says, a child leaves his parents to be joined to one wife. That is, a man leaves his parents to be joined to one wife. I speak as Christ and the church. And to bring about same-sex marriages in the Church of England, which I understand is happening or on the way to happen in the Church of Scotland, is a blasphemy against the ethos of the Bible, which refers to Christ and his church. We need to protect our children from this. And so what has the SNP done? The SNP are bringing about a disingenuous conversion therapy ban, which will criminalize parents for protecting their children from LGBT ideology. The Scottish Government's plan for a wide-ranging ban on LGBT conversion therapy will terrorize parents, writes Will Jones, for simply trying to help their children navigate normal adolescence, and criminalize Christians for teaching what Christians have always taught and should be dropped. Church leaders in Scotland have said in a letter to the new Minister for Equality, Emma Roddick. The Scotsman is referred to by Will Jones. Reverend Dr. William Phillip of the Tron Church Glasgow, and signatory on the letter, said the planned ban was alarming. He said, the presentation as a law to protect LGBT people from abuse is disingenuous. All such abuse and coercion is already quite rightly illegal. It is these proposals which are abusive towards ordinary people, including loving parents protective of their children, by criminalizing simply speaking with them, praying for them, or daring to disagree with LGBT ideology. The Tron Church is a split from the Church of Scotland in relation to the LGBTQ agenda, is my understanding anyway. And when I see a local church like I've seen here of the Church of Scotland on this so-called Good Friday, I say so-called because frankly, how can a church refer to the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, a church that embraces LGBTQ agenda? It beats me, and I find it abusive to find such a church walking up and down the road with a cross, with a small gathering of people behind it, when they do not stand for what the cross stood for, the bearing of sins of humanity, which includes homosexual and heterosexual sin. Yet the Church of Scotland is embracing this agenda. Church of England's embracing this agenda. Threatening, continues Dr. William Phillip, to punish church leaders and churches for upholding Christian teaching, terrorizing mothers and fathers with the specter of removing their parental rights for simply trying to help their children navigate normal adolescence. Are these, he asks, really the marks of a free and tolerant society? So coming into this SNP, I'm now calling SGP, Scottish Globalist Party, coming right into the heart of it is a Muslim leader who Dan Wooton describes as useless, embracing the LGBTQ agenda as a Muslim. I'd like to see him do that in Mecca. Embracing this false eco-green technology King Charles and now William is embracing. Let me tell you, what brings climate change primarily is the sun. Second, the planet Jupiter, so much larger than the Earth, having record gas storms, is my understanding. Record sun activity. Is this causing climate change? Climate change has always happened. We've gone through warming periods, icing periods. All of this has happened in the world's history. It is nothing new. It has little to do with what man does. Indeed, God, in my view, has given us fossil fuel. He's given us natural gas under the sea, under the earth, oil under the sea off the coast of Scotland, natural gas under the sea off the coast of Scotland, which needs to be used. And this anti-ecological move of windmills, I understand they're not even recyclable and that they only have a limited lifespan of 25 years. And they affect the ground, they affect the marine life. We will protect the ground, we will protect farmers, we will protect marine life by our policy of using fossil fuel. Even the technology of clean coal, of opening up the coal pits again, environmentally friendly coal. Look, this whole pulling down of the SNP government is not about misappropriation of money primarily. It is all about their green credentials and their awful alliance with the Green Party. Pantheists, in my view. There needs to be a rising up of the people. And we in the Scottish Heritage Party are offering that platform. I am totally and absolutely appalled by the behavior of the royal family, particularly to the Green King Charles, who's given royal assent to new gene breeding technology, a major threat to our farmers. We will protect our farmers, I will assure you, in the Scottish Heritage Party. But let's have a look now at what Dan Wooton has to say in relation to the new regime of the SGP, Scottish Globalist Party. Let's see what he has to say, because this is going to be so interesting that I really feel the people really need to understand what is happening. I really feel the blindness. It's as if we've been put into a trance over the last 2 years with crazy, and I really mean this, crazy policies, locking down the people, closing down the churches. We are dealing with something so serious, in my view, that we need to understand that there needs to be something Reform UK cannot offer, something the Conservatives cannot offer, something Alba cannot offer, something the Labour Party cannot offer. We will restore normal energy prices by the use of fossil fuel. We will protect the environment by stopping the windmills from abusing our land and farmland and marine life. We will have an ecologically sound policy in government to set the people free from not being able to heat their homes, to have cheaper food prices, by rejecting the global order and its net zero nonsense. We are the not zero party. We are the not LGBTQ agenda party. We will reject all of this in government and ask you to join us so we can take over Holyrood and give the power back to the people.
The SNP just destroyed the dream of Scottish separatism in favour of the woke engineering of society that very few Scots actually want, with this decision today to replace scheming Sturgeon with whom's a useless. USAF has long been considered a lightweight joke, and he proved a failure as a minister. Not just, by the way, for this mortifying moment of arrogance where he tumbled off his knee scooter while showing off to the BBC, which, oh, it never gets old. Never gets old. But he's also the man who was caught by cops for driving without insurance as Transport Secretary, and recently said this to a group of Ukrainian women who had fled the war to the UK.
Okay. So one question I have is, where are all the men?
Or Scotland. Tonight, I'm actually going to leave it to Kate Forbes, USAF's socially conservative, competent and Christian rival, who only lost in a 52-48 head-to-head in the end, as to why Scots have just been landed with a dud.
Hamza, you've had a number of jobs in government. When you were Transport Minister, the trains were never on time. When you were Justice Minister, the police were strained to breaking point. And now, as Health Minister, we've got record high waiting times. What makes you think you can do a better job as First Minister?
He can't. Remember, by the way, that's his own SNP cabinet colleague, not a rival from another party. But it's not just incompetence that makes USAF a danger to Scotland. He is vowing to continue the dystopian woke policies of the Sturgeon era, including the sort of gender extremism that saw the so-called trans rapist, who I still call Adam Graham on this show, end up in an all-female Scottish prison. And USAF, following Sturgeon's extreme woke playbook, made clear during the campaign he's not going to back down on the gender recognition reform bill, despite Scots being overwhelmingly opposed, given the danger it poses to biological women and girls.
First principle is to absolutely fight that Westminster veto, because I don't think that the UK government should have the right to strike down our laws.
But they do. How do you fight it? Because they constitutionally they do have the right.
First you fight it.
Do you regret not voting for amendments that would put rapists in women's prisons?
No, I don't. It has nothing to do with GRR, because GRR is not in force. No, you can shout. Okay. You can shout all you want.
Yeah, we will. We will keep shouting. This woke stuff, by the way, is all very ironic, given that USAF, who is Muslim, allegedly refused to vote for gay marriage in Scotland after receiving pressure from Muslim leaders, so arranged a meeting with the Pakistani government to avoid it. And there's a darker side to the USAF ideology too, and I don't just mean the Republican bid to overthrow the monarchy if Scotland ever does achieve separatism.
Republican. I believe that we should be citizens first, not subjects. So we'd keep the monarchy for a period of time, but then I'd hope Scotland, an independent Scotland, would move to be a republic in the future.
Now, I'm actually talking about the way USAF is so quick to sign up to divisive social causes not backed up by his people, including demanding all Scots must prove they are anti-racists while spreading discredited BLM critical race theory propaganda like this in the Scottish Parliament.
Most senior positions in Scotland are filled almost exclusively by those who are white. Take my portfolio alone. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every prison governor, white. And not just justice, the Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white.
Now, I find that type of rhetoric disgraceful. Actually, USAF is clearly using the race card to stoke division without any attempt to add crucial context, so I will add some. The fact is, Scotland is a 96% white country, where just 0.5% are African, 0.12% are Caribbean or black, and just 2.66% are Asian. So well done, Yousaf, on reaching the height of Scottish politics. But thank you too, because with such a craven, woke, incompetent leader determined to follow an extreme social agenda, I believe the Union is now safer than it's ever been this century. Scheming Sturgeon's separatism pipe dream just got a whole load more unrealistic.
What Dan Wooton has brought out there, I believe, is so serious. I believe playing the race card, he was showing himself, this is my belief, being a racist himself. When it comes to positions, I believe we need to choose the very best person for the job. Now, I'm not saying that's got to be a white person, not at all. You know, I don't know whether Humza Useless really knows this, but the vast majority of people live in Scotland are white, and that is reflected in the seats of authority he's referring to. I run a Christian ministry from here in Wooton, and recently a lady from a Bengali background has joined us, and immediately I said to her, Pamela, you are same, you are equal with the rest of, I'm talking in Christian ministry terms, because God doesn't see a differential between black, brown, or white. But people in power will reflect the majority of the population. So the majority of the people are white, then the majority of the jobs which are filled by people will be white. So in an African country like Uganda, most of their people in Uganda who take the seats of authority are in fact black. And that's correct because it reflects the society. So we need to understand, I believe, that Humza's playing a race card incorrectly. And that we need to offer equality to all. I hate racism with such a passion. But I hate the BLM movement with a great passion because I believe it to be racist. I come on the side of Martin Luther King, who wanted his children to have equal opportunity to that of white children. From that base of equality came the human rights movement, which succeeded legally in bringing that equality to the United States of America. It is that ethos we in the Scottish Heritage Party stand for and believe in. And people from all backgrounds are welcome to join our party. Unless, of course, you've been part of WEF, which the King has been a part of. Because it is these political organizations which are attacking our constitution. The net zero policies relate to an article I had before me by Andrew Picken, who's written, paramedics say people are getting ill because their homes are so cold. It's as if I'm identifying our ministry, our charity, cannot afford oil at this time because there's been a 25% decline in giving and about a 40 to 50% increase in costs. And so we're identifying, I'm 70, my wife is 74, we're identifying with those who can't heat their homes. When we finish work, we can go to our residential area and heat that up. We use convection electric heaters. But when we're working, our work area is a large area, we can't afford to heat it. So we're in this heat or eat scenario. And it's because of this eco movement with its false objective of climate change, net zero, all of that. It's just not true. Our climate's affected primarily by the sun, secondly by Jupiter, And you know, this business over electric cars, it's abusing the children, having to go mines in DR Congo to find lithium so as to please these green extremists. We will save the children, just as the Christian Lord Shaftesbury saved the children from going up chimneys in his day. We will save the nation for the green movement. We will save the nation from the LGBTQ agenda. But before we start looking at the papers, there is a report I've received in relation to a top lawyer investigating if the Scottish Ferries contract was rigged. Now, there is a lot going around about the SNP, not only in its own financial affairs, but also in its affairs in government. And two Calmac ferries, and the ferries are in a terrible state, are now £150 million over budget and 5 years late. A BBC disclosure investigation obtained a leaked dossier which suggested that successful bidder Ferguson Marine Engineering had preferential treatment. And the Scotsman newspaper reports that the KC will deliver findings directly to Scotland's most senior civil servant, Permanent Secretary John Paul Marks. The ferries agency CMA is owned by the Scottish Government. Now, what we do know in the wider aspect is the Scottish Government has made a mess of most things, but particularly transport. I understand Mr. Useless was Transport Secretary at one time and the trains were always late. Look, we need to, in my view, just taking Holyrood over is not enough. Our nation has become the drugs nation of the whole of Europe. It's not working with Holyrood. And I believe what we need to do is close the whole place down and give decisions and the power back to the people who will do a far better job. And that by closing Holyrood, what we will do is restore the original county boundaries and give the resources back to the people and have an increased presence in Westminster. I believe we are the United Kingdom, of which Scotland is a nation. Not a nation under England, not a nation under Wales or Northern Ireland, but a group of nations who are equal to one another, with a monarch who keeps to the constitutional coronation oath of 1689 than the new woke agenda of Charles. This is my belief. This is my conviction. This is why I'm coordinating the Heritage Party in Scotland. Over to the papers. Now, the papers are full of what's going on in the household of Mr. Morrill and Ms. Sturgeon, as they like to be called. The Herald reports the Morrill is released as SNP probe continues. In the background there, as you can see on the paper, is the house of the Morrill and Sturgeon. And there's a big tent being put there, not for a barbecue, I think. I think it's for the police evidence. A major inquiry is going on. The Herald reporting Morrill being released as the probe continues. Next paper we have online for you. Bear with me. I've just got it with you just now. There it is. It's coming up. Is the Scotsman. The SNP in disarray after Morrill arrested and offices raided. I do not believe this is the main reason why the SNP is in disarray. The reason is over ethical family issues. It's as if they've hit something spiritual which is pulling them down. and that which is of money is less important than that which is of life. The most important thing we will do on coming into government in Scotland, even before giving the power back to the people with proper local councils, will be to save the babies in the womb. The Scottish Daily Mail asked the question, so is this the real reason Sturgeon quit? I don't think so. And with respect to the writer on our Wumble platform, I understand it would seem that you think so, but I don't think so. It's a perfectly honourable position you have. But I honestly believe the abortion of a child is a more serious crime than £600,000, which is apparently missing according to the Scottish Daily Mail. We then come to the National, which is an SNP supporting paper. Secrets of the Stone of Destiny being revealed, which is something they would bring up before a coronation. A moral release after SNP finance probe arrest. So he was arrested and released is the story. The Daily Telegraph, police face questions over possible delay to arrest at Sturgeon's home, thinking they were allowing her to resign first. I've given my view already. And then we have a play on words here from the Daily Record. You're nicked. Nicola Sturgeon's husband, Peter Morrell, arrested in SNP finance probe. Police raid couple's Glasgow home and party headquarters in Edinburgh. I think it's quite significant Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Morrell have an estate home, a private estate home, which I think is possibly surprising, be it that the profile that they have, but that's what they have. A house taped off with tent on lawn, but ex-party chief released. That's the account in the Daily Record. Similar headline in the Scottish Sun. Sturgeon hubby arrest shock. You're nicked. Moral quiz by fraud cops. We've all got to remember a person is innocent until he or she is proven guilty. What I believe they are well and truly guilty of is the murder of aborted children. Far more important than 600,000 is a life in a womb. Daily Express, Sturgeon husband in shock, SNP cash probe arrest. Police raid their home and SNP's HQ. Sturgeon had no prior knowledge is the story. Again, not interested. I'm interested in saving the child, saving the family, saving our children from the LGBTQ agenda. The Eye reads SNP in crisis as Morrell is arrested. Then the Scottish Sun, Sturgeon's hubby arrested. SNP bombshell. The P&J, which is the Press and Journal, Sturgeon husband quizzed by police in SNP cash probe. Party former chief executive arrested at home. 58-year-old released after 11 hours of questioning. Inquiry comes on, gotta read that, £600,000 raised for indie campaign. Crazy agenda to give £600,000 to. Whoever gave to it, please understand there's far better causes. Then the Edinburgh News reads, Peter Morrell released without charge after questioning. Sturgeon's husband arrested in SNP finance probe. And there is rich pickings for Easter at Musselburgh. For those who don't know, Musselburgh is the racecourse nearest to Edinburgh down the A1 towards Newcastle. The Courier reads from Dundee, Sturgeon husband quizzed by police in SNP cash probe. And then there's a story of a popular music venue being reopened. 5-year-old dies, a terrible story from Glasgow in the Times from Glasgow. Young girl 9 also taken to hospital in serious condition. Then from Dundee, the Evening Telegraph, man 37 in hospital after street stabbing. This is one of the stronghold areas of the SNP. And what I would say to the people of Dundee, please change your heart and move to the Scottish Heritage Party, which recognises Scotland as a nation, but recognises Scotland as a nation within the UK. And then in the Evening Express, a really bad idea, set of thief use bins to move stolen items in more than one incident. Delivery driver ended up on van bonnet during a getaway attempt. A story of a crime there. Well, to conclude, what have we been going through today? We have been going through a very important area. The infiltration of woke ideology. We listened to Dan Wooton in his presentation of the SNP, now being called SGP, Scottish Globalist Party. We listened to what Dan Wooton had to say and believe it to be an accurate analysis of this dreadful government in Scotland. And my encouragement to you is to join the Scottish Heritage Party. We will protect the people from conception to the grave. This is the most important area which we need to address right away. And please understand that we are passionate in protecting our children. We are passionate in our desire to bring the schools back to the standards and even better than they used to be. We are passionate to declare to the people of Scotland, we are a nation, but a nation within the United Kingdom, a nation which cares about its people, whether they be in the womb or out of the womb. It's time to put out and abort a Scottish national government and replace it to one that stands for traditional family values. This is David Griffiths of the Scottish Heritage Party saying God bless. We'll see you again next week on Scotland This Week.